Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back. All right, all you positive heads, here we go again. I have been bombarded with a lot of ladies. I've been swarmed today. It's going to be an extra special Monday episode here with my roomie, my beautiful roomie, Zoe Dane, my ex-beautiful roomie, Damiana, who you've heard before. And I'll let it, well, actually, everyone, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump in so they know your voices.
Aloha, I'm Damiana Loves.
Hello, I am Zoe Dane.
Hi, my name is Alexandra.
Greetings, so happy to be here. My name is Roxanne Ruby.
And these ladies have just come back from a Wathchtower Mary Magdalene-centric immersion. And I would explain what that means, but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't do it justice. And they're like, Brandon, we gotta get on the show and share this magic. And, you know, if you've heard Damiana before, she's hard to say no to. So here we are. And yeah, so that's just where I want to kick this off. Please, what are we talking about here with the Wathchtower and Mary Magdalene, and what's all the excitement about?
Well, before we dive in, I would just love to open this space and this container with a short prayer on behalf of this beautiful opportunity. Thank you so much for having us here. And the way that I've been taught is that, you know, life is a ritual, life is a ceremony, and every little thing that we do, we can bring in that same mentality of intention. And so it's good to open a container like this with a prayer. So just want to bring us all into coherence together and give thanks for this moment and this alignment of being able to have such a beautiful weekend and all the 41 women that came together in honor of the memory of Mary Magdalene to immerse ourselves for 4 days of teaching and studying and doing ritual and ritual theater. Just really want to give thanks to the memory of Mary here, and in that same way express my sincere gratitude to the lineage of women that came before us, to our mothers and their mothers and the many mothers before them, and all the holy waters that have birthed us into creation, and also to this land here, the homelands of the Chumash people. We're here in Los Angeles, California, acknowledging the people that have tended to this land for so long and the blessing that it is to get to gather from many different places and come and be held in the beauty of these mountains, and to get to open our hearts together and move through some very healing work this past 4 days, and now to arrive here in celebration and victory of what has been done, giving thanks for everyone being kept really safe and kind with one another, and the beautiful transformation that's happening within the restoration of the relationships between women. So just praying that within these moments together that we can get out of our way and be clear vessels and channels for whatever wants to flow through each of us as vessels for the divine and for Mary Magdalene. Homo Takuyasin, honoring all of our relationships, blessing to the human, the natural, and the divine realms. Ankh Neteru, Ankh Neteru, Ankh Neteru. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, I could tell you what it is, and I've also been at the center of it, and I feel like it would be really amazing to get to hear maybe from you, Damiana, since you have catalyzed this moment in time, if you'd like to share what this experience has been and what is Wathchtower.
To be a watchtower is to be a lighthouse of truth, beaming from within, guiding others home through our presence. To truly step into, to rise into the empowered, embodied leader of leaders that we are here to be. We have been deep stuck in the cycle of the patriarchy for a very long time. We swung really far to that direction for a long time. And there was a massive swing in the other direction of that of the feminist movement. And both were severely out of balance. And we are in a time right now where we are coming back into that sacred balance, that equilibrium, the power of the divine union within, so that we can experience it without. As within, so without. As above, so below. We are all woven together in this infinite web of life. And as we rise into that divine union within, we truly rise together. It's not just the men, it's not just the women, it's not just for the animals, it's not just for the climate, it's truly coming into the cyclical, sacred nature of all that is. And remembering that we are full spectrum beings. We are the dark and the light. We came through the darkness to be here. No human came to this planet without coming through the portal that lies between the thighs of a woman.
True that.
So remembering what it truly is to remember, to bring all of the pieces back together, and truly weaving a world of love, weaving the world back together as one.
I love that because you see it so much in society now where things swing so far one direction or another, or people will ping on this particular thing is what is important, and this is, I'm all about my veganism, or I'm all about the climate, or I'm all about the masculine, the feminine, all the different causes, and it's all important. It's all necessary. And so, yeah, I love that.
And it's also what causes the separation.
Yep.
To be so focused on one, which is beautiful, because often that one thing that you're so passionate about, that is the medicine that you're here to bring forth.
Yeah.
And again, as we come more fully into balance, we see the divine in all. We see that holy sacredness, the humanness and the divine in all.
Yeah.
And that's when we can truly come into right relations with all, with the land, with the animals, with our bodies, with each other, recognizing that everything comes back to relationship. The relationship we have with our own bodies, with our mothers, with our fathers, with our lovers, with the animals, with the earth, with the land, with the ancestors, with the divine, with the celestial realms. It's all one, just like this beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Like, what an amazing reminder. And the kingdom of heaven, seeing the heaven, truly anchoring heaven on earth, remembering that heaven is here now, being the bridge between heaven and earth, which is the transmission that just came through recently of Heaven is Here Now, the new transmission song on my online Spotify, all the things. So I'm excited to share that medicine with you.
Casual plug, Damiana.
That's true, it's here.
And just to bring this thread back of what is Wathchtower, and particularly this event that we just came from, because really what we did, I mean, I would like to say that we're making history and we're making her story. Yes. I've never done what we did this weekend, to be in a home with 40 women gathered, all completely aligned with our hearts and our minds, and really following this thread of curiosity about Mary Magdalene. And this project was seeded from an idea that I had with our dear sister Rose, who is my co-captain on this mission. And the original thought was to create a film and to utilize the platform of media to be able to share a story that is not so much like a solid factual history of Mary Magdalene, because that is something that is a bit tricky.
It's
since
questionable,
it's
right? The Bible,
right.
in general, it's like,
which we
on,
can talk
you're
about.
Quoting who? And
Well,
I get misquoted from yesterday, and we have all this technology, you know, much less.
And there's a lot, I mean, we can definitely go into that, right? Like where the resources come from that are available to us. And I mean, just to touch on the Bible, like this is, you know, there's the major world religions, but Christianity and the Bible, and particularly the Christian Bible, is the most sold, most printed book on the planet.
Yeah.
So it's a huge current of information that is informing the collective mind, right?
Yeah.
The collective consciousness. And Mary Magdalene is mentioned at very important moments in the story of Jesus and his life. And when we refer to Jesus, we use his original pronunciation of his name, which is Yeshua. So you'll hear that in this hour. And really attuning to the life and the story of Yeshua, and also the energy that was coming through him, which is Christ consciousness. And with the path of studying Mary Magdalene, it's this understanding that the Christ consciousness was not only embodied through a man, but also through a woman in form of Mary Magdalene.
What blasphemy! Kidding.
Which
makes a lot of sense.
Which also, it makes sense considering that Jesus is referenced in the Bible to be a rabbi, and historically speaking, rabbis are married. And so for him to be a Jewish rabbi living in his time and to not have a wife would have been quite scandalous. That would have been actually much more surprising. And so the thought is that he and Mary were betrothed, that they were in a holy divine union. And just that alone really changes our perception of reality and the role of the woman in spirituality. And so all that to be said, the project of Wathchtower is an exploration of Mary's side of Christ consciousness and of these teachings. And the thought to create this film, and the film project is a docu-series that follows in the footsteps of Mary from Egypt to Israel, England, and France, and that it tells the story of us doing that journey and what comes up for us along the way. And so again, it's not like this is who Mary Magdalene was and this for sure is her story and this is for sure, like, it's a mystery, but it's a beautiful exploration, and each of us in our own way. And what has brought us together, I mean, the reason that we know Zoe is because we have this common interest of Mary, speaking for pure devotion. And so she's bringing us together. And then when we start to exchange our stories, we're like, wow, this is what has happened with you since you've deepened in this relationship, you know, just coming back to that word, because that's really so much of what this is about. And so we have this idea to do a film, and it's been an idea for a few years. But you know how ideas sometimes can just be an idea for a long time, forever, often. And so Rose and I were having a thought at the beginning of this year, like, man, we got to just take a first step. And we came to the realization that the best thing we could do is get together with other Magdalenes, other sisters who are in devotion to this path, and to be in ritual together, be honestly together, studying and praying and seeing what comes through, and to film it. And see what the story, what is the story that's being revealed. And then from there we'll learn so much, which we have learned so much these days. You know, it's been remarkable. And so this live experience has really just been like an incubator, like a cauldron for us to all just soak in this juicy vibration and to hear and deeply listen to each other and see what arises. And it's been beautiful. And the last thing I'll just add, and we were talking about this right before we turned on the taping, is that the thing that is really touching my heart a lot right now, after being in this container with all these different expressions of the lineage of Marys, which we'll talk more about that perhaps, because it is a whole lineage. It's not just one woman. It's actually an entire bloodline and a spiritual lineage of initiations that have been passed down for thousands of years, and that this wisdom is resurfacing now because it's very needed on the planet. And it's an energy of service and devotion and peace and compassion, all things that are very needed, because even though we are living heaven on earth, in many ways, hell is also here now. Sure. So we have big work to do. It's a big responsibility. And these teachings help us to assume our position for that responsibility. And what's beautiful is that how it has been said that the next Buddha is the Sangha. This idea that our next savior is not one person nor one man that's here to save everyone. It's each of us finding that devotion and that sacrifice, that inner Messiah, not in a way that's like, oh, I'm the one that's going to save everybody. That's like, wow, I am one important piece and everything that I do matters. And I'm going to band together with other people that feel that same sense of responsibility in a beautiful way, and that we come together and we make something that is greater than the sum of its parts. And that's what I've been able to see this weekend, of like looking into the eyes of my sisters and these women taking care of each other in such an impeccable way, and to just be like, wow, like we're each carrying a unique thread, and when it's woven together, it's creating this tapestry that is just brilliant and beyond, and is really what I believe to be one of the greatest medicines of this moment.
What I love about what you said is, you know, as the Bible actually says, where two or more are gathered in my name, I'll be there. Exactly. And that's really what you said. We're getting together and seeing what comes up and comes through, and setting this intention. Oh, yeah, the desk goes up and down over there, right where you're at. We just had a little movement.
Elevated.
And and having also grown up in a very conservative Christian household, I went to it's called Church of Christ, and it's more prevalent in the South, and it's very like sort of takes the New Testament literal, and it's like women didn't have a voice. Women weren't allowed to get up and say anything. And it's like that's blasphemy, really. Exactly. But it was like that was how it is. The wife obeys the husband, and all this like archaic, idiotic idealism of man being superior to woman. Right. So just the idea, just conceptually, of Christ consciousness and how it expresses through the feminine, very intriguing and interesting and necessary. So
and it really gives us the full picture, right? Because we have these two sides of the spectrum, and now we're living in a moment that's very liberating, and that there's an entire spectrum of gender that's being able to be lived and expressed, which is beautiful. And there is this rising of the feminine, and it's not just within women, it's within the collective. Right. And bringing these important codes online that are from the birthers and the ones that carry life. And I mean, there's just a lot of wisdom there for us. And infinite. And I think it would be worth just getting specific so that we can keep covering, because there's so much to cover, you know. But you talked about the Bible and how Mary is mentioned in the Bible. And for those that maybe only know her as this reputation of being a prostitute, right, which, you know, has actually been publicly denied now. The Catholic Church took that back. The Vatican. Yeah, officially. Back in like the 60s, I think. My dates, Rose is better at this part. But Cool. I was going to ask if Zoe would come and just share a bit about like who is Mary Magdalene, because we know what her reputation has been, but also again, like the church took that back. Then they actually declared her to be the apostle of apostles and then eventually sainted her. And so there's a lot more to the story. It's just a matter of educating ourselves and each other.
Peeling
So
back the layers.
Zoe, please enlighten us.
Okay. Well, I just want to say a lot of this path, I mean, for me, I didn't grow up religious. So it was like really profound to come into and come onto the Magdalene Divine Feminine Christ path. And really like this descent into my own gnosis and like following the rose thread, which I want to speak into in a moment. For those of you who didn't grow up religious, it's 333. So this is something I wrote a couple years ago. I've been celebrating Mary Magdalene's feast day as like a high holy day for the past couple years, and gathering in sisterhood, because that's a lot of the way that these rose codes come online. Healing in sisterhood, being witnessed by your sisters, and you know, whatever has come up for you around your female friendships, elevating. So Mary Magdalene was the priestess of the rose, here to teach the way of unconditional love and divine union. Her embodied Shakti energy gave her notoriety of being a whore and a sinner, which is why she's known as the prostitute. She is now renowned as a saint, as the apostle to the apostles. Her blueprints and teachings are being remembered and restored throughout our collective consciousness. She was seen as Christ's beloved and also equal partner in teaching, healing, and transmission. As of 2016, her image was rehabilitated from whore, prostitute to saint by the church, and she was given a feast day, which is July 22nd, which are reserved for the most respected saints. So now she has her seat at the table. Mary Magdalene was, I mean, many believe this, I believe this to be true, I believe we all do, was an initiate of Isis, the goddess of magic and sacred sexuality, and well-trained in sex magic, tantra, and the alchemical arts, which is a lot of what we were doing at Wathchtower this weekend, and all the women just like knew how to seamlessly get back into that space of ritual and prayer. She was the bridge between heaven and earth, a seeker, a mystic, an oracle, a healer, a human, a tantrika, a courageous leader, keeper of the violet flame. She was the divine feminine incarnate, the Holy Grail. The Magdalene energy is an empowering force, here to help you step into sovereignty, reclaim your sexuality as sacred, break out of patriarchal shackles, own the fuck out of your voice and who you are, and to be the legendary leader of love that you came here to be.
Woo! Woo-hoo. Hallelujah!
Is that all?
In a nutshell.
That's a small nutshell, too.
But very big.
But ultimately, like the piece that I want to touch on, and I know we just spoke about the divine union, but that was like the main template that they were here to anchor, is the Hieros Gamos, you know, and Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were the physical embodiments of that union, that alchemical union that Damiana was speaking into earlier. And, you know, they really set that and grid that into the planet. So a lot of, you know, we see the twin flame unions and these pieces, right? And they're these catalyzers for this level of embodiment, for these codes. And to literally be that watchtower, right? That beacon, that embodiment. You don't even have to say anything. You're just emanating it. You're beaming it. You are being it. And yeah, and then through that inner union, that inner alchemy, you do attract your divine counterpart, you know, and then you do the work that you came here to do. And it's funny because you're not even doing the work's doing you.
Ain't that the truth?
And the etymology of work. The etymology of work is worship. And so recognizing like it's our worship that is bringing us into this. And that's why the power of the devotional love and the worship is like, that's saying, it's like, this is our worship. It's not even our work anymore. It's like, this is why we came here. Yeah. This is a way of living, a way of being. And that emanation is through the beingness. And just to bring in the magic of this beautiful human, his name, his initials are BBB.
Definitely, that's my work.
Wow.
That's your worship.
Yeah. And speaking of etymology and words, you know, because kind of I'm sure it's been curious to people what Watchtower has to do with Magdalene.
I know. I think of, you know, Jehovah's Witness. I think has a whole, I think that's
okay. That's the Watchtower,
okay.
and it is a newsletter.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
I only know that because I've been on this Jehovah's Witness
project.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah, and it was the name for this immersion. I wasn't sure if this was going to be the name for the entire project. And after this weekend, it's suiting for sure.
Cool.
And it comes from actually what Magdalene means. It's the Hebrew word Migdal means tower, and I was just listening to another episode of this podcast on the way here, and you were talking about the archetypes of the tarot, and also the tower is an archetype of the tarot,
right? And
it's an archetype that if you're familiar with the tarot, it's the card that when you pull it, you want to like slip it back in the deck because you're like, oh shit!
Oh no!
Tower moment!
Wow! That is whoa.
I almost moved this.
That is wild.
Wow,
The tower moment jumping out of the building.
that was literally right.
Wow. This is, well, it's a very powerful conversation, so energy moves. It's magic.
This is the work
This is the
doing
kind-
This is the
And
tower.
also, this is the kind of stuff that happens.
Yes.
Like that moment when we were deep in the bathing ritual
Yes.
and the sacred waters started squirting out
Oh, I
while
wanted
she's talking about. We have to talk
about that. Yeah. That too.
So one of the archetypes of the tarot is the tower, and this is an archetype of deep initiation. And if you don't know the card, it looks like a building, a tower on fire with people jumping out of it, and it really is this moment of like destruction through fire, but also transformation and what needs to burn away so that we can rise as the phoenix into our next version of ourselves.
And for dramatic flair, and we edited some of it out because it took quite a few, probably a couple minutes. Right as we brought up the tower, the internet tower was knocked over by Zoe Dane for dramatic effect.
Like I
Credit
said
where credit is
earlier,
due.
it's something working through me.
But that's this archetypal reality, right? Like the archetypes are very present with us, and they have much to teach us. And the archetype of the tower, what's beautiful about it is that when we can transmute the fear that comes from these deep initiatory processes, which eventually, even as hard as they can be when you're in the thick of it, can really shape our lives in beautiful ways and beneficial ways. And someone said something this summer that really hit me. They said, when you fall from the tower, we were talking about this particular archetype. When you fall from the tower, you land on the ground. You land you land on the earth once again. And that is really where we're at right now, is we're in a collective tower dynamic of falling from this building that has been shaped by how our teachers call it, the monster of consumerism, this beast that has built something, it's like Babel, trying to get closer to God, trying to be greater than God, but we're just falling on our faces and landing back at the earth and remembering this divine inheritance that we have received and how to care for it. And so in that sense, we're returning to the mother. And in that sense, Mary Magdalene embodies that energy of the initiator. And that's the lineage of Isis, which her Kemetic original name is Aset. And so within the lineage of Aset, there's these rites and rituals of initiation that have been passed down. And it's not just the sex mysteries, although that is a big part of this work, but it goes so far beyond that, and really our sensual relationship with life and how we care for life. And so there's that part of it, right? Like the Migdal, the tower, and the Watchtower is another one of her names. The apostle of apostles and the watchtower of the flock. So while Yeshua was there teaching and working and doing his service, she was there as the oracle and as the observer and the one, the high priestess, tending, another archetype, tending to Yeshua as his divine double. And also, coming back to the language, the M-A-G of Magdalene, the Maj is the magic. And then the Daleth in Hebrew is the doorway. And so thinking of this beautiful portal between our legs, this portal to this doorway to the divine where creation comes through, this is the doorway to the magic, the Magdalene.
And what's beautiful about this immersion is how there was a very common thread amongst the women when asked what their connection to Mary Magdalene was, and it was, for a lot of them, at a point in their lives that was their darkest hour, and that's one of the big medicines of the Magdalene is that she comes to you in these moments of deep suffering and struggle and darkness and the tower moments in our lives, and she helps with her medicine, which is unconditional love, pull you out of that and bring you back to yourself, bring you back to your essence, which is love. And it was just so potent to see how that thread was so common amongst all the women, and just the power of that medicine that she brings.
Is the Gospel of Mary, is that all? I've heard of the Gospel of Mary, but I'm not familiar. Is it all?
Well, you're going to have Rose Hartsong on here to do a deep dive with you in the Gospel, because it is something that we're studying. We had a multiple hour session with her on Friday morning, really diving deep into the scripture. And it's not included in the current version of the Bible, but there are versions. The Ethiopian Bible includes it. There's a New Testament that includes it, but there's many Gospels of the Bible that were not included, including
they just cut them out, the ones they didn't
right.
like, right?
So it was a series. First of all, we're dealing with two dynamics here. We're dealing with translation and telephone, which we've all played telephone, and we know how a message can change just within a circle of 10 people, nonetheless, over hundreds of years and now thousands.
And add an agenda to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And we can,
slavery.
there's a lot that wants to come through right now. So, but anyway, just speaking to the gospel, in the Gospel of Mary, this is a text that has been found. I believe there's 3 of them that have been found right now. Rose is dead set on finding a more full version, because the 3 that have been found are incomplete.
Missing 7 pages.
Yeah, each one missing
Oh,
7
really?
pages. Yeah. So there's a lot of
Very
information.
important part of the story.
Yeah.
So 3 copies, all
3
missing
copies.
the same 7 pages? Is that,
Yeah.
That's
Seven.
bizarre.
But it's bizarre, but it's also, if you look at it, like, there's different energies that move on the planet at different times, right? Coming again once back to this archetypal dynamic. And it really seems like, for whatever reason, right now is Mary's moment.
Yeah.
Because these 3 different scripts were found in different places a long time ago. Like, I don't know the dates, but it took years, decades. Once they were found, it then took decades for them to even go into print. And so we're only just receiving these in a real way now.
Yeah.
And it includes profound wisdom, and it really sets the record straight. And so for those that are curious about this, I definitely suggest pursuing it, finding the gospel. Magdalene Revealed is a wonderful resource of a book by
Mary
Megan.
Magdalene's Gospel.
Yeah, it includes Mary Magdalene's
Magdalene
Gospel,
Revealed.
and
Well,
just
Mary Magdalene's Gospel is its own book. So
Yeah.
you can order that, Mary Magdalene Revealed.
Rituals and Sacred Stone.
Rituals and Sacred
And
Stone.
the author whom came to the immersion and blessed us with her wisdom and magic, which was so
wow,
special.
cool.
She was with us the whole weekend.
Thank God.
So beautiful.
Before we continue on with today's episode, for those of you interested in getting more fantastic fungi in your life, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a friend of mine's brand new company, The Great Mother. Recently, I have been drinking The Great Mother's superfood mushroom coffee alternative called Ritual, as well as regularly taking their awesome Ally microdoses, and I am truly loving both. As you probably know, these days, many of the world's highest achievers and performers swear by microdosing. The problem is it can still be difficult to get a hold of magic mushrooms. That's why when my friend reached out, who lives in an area and country where legalization is not a problem like it was in the past, and said he'd be willing to offer microdoses to my listeners, I wanted to pass the word along. Ally microdoses are 100% organic. And in addition to a small amount of the magic active ingredient, they also contain functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, and other brain boosters like bacopa. Ally is essentially a full spectrum nootropic. And of course, the coffee alternative Ritual doesn't contain magic mushrooms, but it has an array of the best organic functional mushrooms in the world. And, you know, with functional mushrooms, it's really important to get them from the highest integrity sources. And whereas some other highly popular mushroom coffee alternatives on the market only contain a few varieties of functional mushrooms in their actual ingredients, Ritual has 7. Not only does it contain more types, it also contains 3 to 4 times the amount that the big brands have in each serving. and it tastes amazing. I actually like to have it on its own as well as mixing it into my coffee sometimes as well. However, since this is definitely a unique offering, there are a few steps. First, just reach out and request to follow the private page, thegreat.mother on Instagram. Once you've been accepted to follow, just message what you're interested in getting and someone will get back to you.
And yeah, also, I just wanted to circle back to, the rose lineage. We keep bringing up the rose lineage, and I want to speak into the power of the rose in, guiding us, especially as the divine feminine, into our soft power, our feminine leadership. This world is parched for true divine feminine leadership, right? And the coherency, the head and heart coherency between, in every human, but especially those who are being watchtowers, who are leading the way. So the reason the rose is so beautifully symbolic in that, and why I would recommend, if you're a man or a woman, connecting with roses, going and buying yourself a bouquet tonight, actually, or today. The rose is the highest frequency being of anything in tangible form. I believe it's 320 megahertz. And so it vibrates at the highest frequency and resonance. So when we are connecting and communing with the energy of the rose, we are activating our rose code. So a lot of the times when you're coming onto the Magdalene path, or rather the Magdalene path is initiating you, it is beckoning you, it is calling you forward, you will see roses everywhere, or you will smell roses, or something. Rose will come up a lot. So, I am sure that after listening to this, you will feel a deeper connection with the rose, and just smelling her and connecting with her and blessing yourself. Like if you have something in your body, you're feeling an ailment or something, bring the soft power of the rose to that space and allow her to give you her medicine, commune with her medicine. And also, like, the rose represents the heart blossoming open, which is the Magdalene path. It is the path of your heart blossoming open, right? You connecting with your womb, connecting with the rose of your yoni, and this ineffable gnosis that you carry within yourself. And through that is like the deepest temple into the mysteries of the Magdalene that you will ever find.
And the other connection with the rose, as well as Magdalene, is connected to Venus, and Venus has a orbit of 8 years that creates a 5-petal rose in the sky, and it's connected to the path of Inanna, her ascent and her descent, which is the orbit of Venus as she becomes a morning star and goes into being an evening star. And so it's all ethereally and astrologically connected as well, and just purely divinely beautiful.
So many layers.
So many layers.
Just like our yonis, just
And
like the
like
rose.
rose petals.
And also, just in her story of the Bible, I just want to finish this dynamic that we're dealing with, which is the aspect that the scriptures were written, they were passed, and then around 500 AD, there was the Council of Nicaea, where there was actually a specific council that was like a filtration of a council of men deciding what the Bible was going to be in its current form, and what scriptures were in and which ones were not. And so there was this agenda that got put in. And I've been really curious about this agenda for a long time, like looking into the dynamics that we're dealing with on planet Earth right now, of war and poverty and plague, and the way that we're treating our soil, the way that we're treating our women, our children. We're living in this very difficult moment to even consider the way that people are treating each other and being treated, and there's a lot of injustice. And at the origins of that, what we've come to understand just through research, and I am forever a student and curious to know more, but what I have been able to track it to is that when we stopped being nomadic, when we settled, and it was essentially the advent of agriculture where this mentality started to metastasize, in that we became owners of the land, and that the power over the land which became like this slave owner dynamic, that the land, instead of being our provider and our mother and the source of life, it became something that we had power over, that was ours, that we owned, and that we mined, that we just realized recently in a conversation, like, wow, we're mining, literally making everything mine about me. We're mining the metals from the earth and causing so much destruction, the oil, and we're sucking out these resources that are, not infinite, and to our own demise. And that at that moment, it wasn't just this, obviously we see what now like modern industrial agriculture is doing to the world, but really it's the mentality that started there that then kept growing and has been growing and growing now for millennia, where there's this hunger for power and really a disconnect of that inner power, right, that exists, that's available to all of us. And so this really, the path of the rose, this really is a journey of empowerment, but of a humble, holistic, wholesome power that ultimately inspires supreme service.
It's the beauty way.
So this woman that you had who wrote the book is an older woman, older than all of you.
Wise woman.
An elder. And what was her thoughts on sort of, seeing what you are stewarding and 40 women? And,
she loved it.
Yeah.
It really, to just think about her perspective, how she put it. She's like, I've just been the writer in the attic. She started working, she's 64 now, and she started working with this energy when she was 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And just to put her name is Venka Brathen.
Yeah.
Rituals and Sacred
we
Stone.
love you, Venka.
So
And it was precious to see this room full of women just hanging on her every word.
So cool.
yeah,
she is magnificent, truly. It is more of a, how you could say, like a fictional presentation of the story of Magdalene and Yeshua. However, the ones of us that have read it, we really feel like it hits home in that way, where you read it and you're like, this feels like truth.
Truth bumps.
And she's done a fair amount of research. Like, she has studied her art history. She's really put an effort into getting to know a lot about not only Mary Magdalene herself and her story with Yeshua, but the teachings that they were receiving, and the culture that was around them, and the bloodlines, and so many different dynamics that are present and brought forth in that book. That the book itself is a beautiful love story, but there's a lot of teachings, ritual teachings inside of it. And so we just reached out to her, and I thought never would she respond to me. She responded right away. And then we ended up building a relationship, and her daughter lives here in LA, and so she came to visit, and she got to see Rose, and they really connected. And then she agreed to come and be present for this weekend, and she was so touched to be received by women who really fully resonated with where she was coming from, and she was able to take us so deep and be in her excitement. And that was really the beauty of it, was we were all just like, in improv, it's like yes and, like you just roll with it and build on each other. And the whole weekend was like yes and, like it would be like, yes, I feel you, and I totally honor your transmission, and there's this piece, and there's this piece. And there was this multi-generational dynamic present. Like, my mother was there. We had multiple mother-daughter combinations. My teacher, Isis Indria, of 10 years of studying, she was there. My teacher, Natalia Price, was there. We had Auntie Mahina from Hawaii. We had these elders there representing Achintia, Goddess Rising, like full force queens showing up and bringing their wisdom. And then all of these other queens that also have their own wisdom, but are more in that role of the student and able to just be like sponges, just soaking it all up. It was magnificent.
There's a book that I just want to throw out why I'm thinking of it, that I had some crazy synchronicity with years ago, magic around. A friend of mine grew up with, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the guy's name is G.W. Harden, and he wrote a book called The Messengers, and it's based off of his experience with a guy, I want to say he's from Oregon, who was trying to do some healing, had a lot of physical issues, and was trying everything to heal himself. And he started doing hypnotherapy and had like a complete blast open remembering of his life as Paul the Apostle, and he was a successful businessman, and it's like, I don't want to be looked at as some quack, but G.W. Harding documented his whole story, and my friend grew up with Harding, and so anyway, this book is not very well known. It's, last time I checked, it's free on his website, but it's like a first-hand account of Jesus and what supposedly through this guy over 6 months going under hypnosis, and the guy was very reluctant to put it down, and and it was, I read it years ago. I don't recall Magdalene. I mean, I'm sure it was in there. It's been so many years ago, like 7-8 years ago I read this book, but maybe check it out and see what's in there, because the messengers,
Well, we are book nerds officially. Like we are a Mary Magdalene book club, and so this is going to be a new study for us.
And I think there's another messengers, if I remember. So make sure it's from G.W. Hardin. It won't be. It was like, at least years back, you had to go to his website and he just gave you the PDF.
Wow, amazing! What a gift.
Yeah.
I mean, hypnosis and theta are powerful,
Yeah.
right? Because they take us into a state where we are bypassing the critical mind and everything that we've learned up until this point in this incarnation to then access our quantum, right? And our lifetimes, the Akashic records, all of the pieces that are here for us, right? So that just inspired me. I am a hypnotherapist, but also to go into, the deepest way that I connected with this path was through self-pleasure practices and sacred sexuality, and the reason being, and you touched on this, Roxanne, this weekend, orgasm, le petit, what is
Le petit mort, the little death.
when you speak French. So hot. But that brings you into a space of being able to, if you can channel that energy in a really directive and an intentional way, right? And like, really connecting with your pleasure body, your light body, especially on this path, there are so many codes that you're then able to remember. It's not even like you're downloading them. You're just remembering. It's your through line to the goddess. It's your through line to the mysteries, right? And that's, we talk about Anana and like the descent. It's the descent into your gnosis, right? And then the sacred sexuality piece, which has been shamed for millennia. And then we see Magdalene as this archetype who is seen as a prostitute and still is, right? I do want to speak into what sacred prostitution was at one point, because there is a reclamation of the sacred prostitute energy in this archetype. So just like we gathered this weekend in sisterhood, we used to gather as priestesses in the temples. And what would happen is, we were all in such deep devotion to the goddess and to Gaia. And from that space, and from having these cultivated womb spaces and this, embodied Shakti, we were very, very selective with it. It wasn't unless the goddess confirmed that we could share this energy with a certain man that he could come into the temple in some of these really curated spaces. So, men would give everything they had to experience the goddess through one of these cultivated initiates. And so there's a book called Sacred Sexuality, and I'm blanking on the author's name, but when I read this piece, it was such an embodied remembrance of these times. And so the men would come in, say a man would come in, all the women would be around the man. Whoa, this ties in. And he would sit in the middle, and all of the women would be inducing him into a state of hypnosis by tickling him with a feather and singing to him, and all of their different gifts being utilized to put him into this hypnosis of Shakti. And then in this state where he's bypassed his critical mind and dropped into his body, then he's more in his God state, right? And then he would pick which woman he was going to experience the goddess through. They would all be dancing around him, and then he would go, her. And then all the women, all the sisters would go and adorn her body with oils, dress her, and it was all a ritual of devotion to the goddess. And then they would have their experience where she would be the conduit for the transmission of the goddess to go and to be with him and heal him in whatever way or activate whatever codes, And so a lot of the Magdalene path is, us really wielding our sexuality and understanding the power that we hold between our thighs and just in our energetic embodiment, right? And then from that space, like, that is the initiation for the divine masculine,
Wow.
And with that too, like, what I think is worth mentioning, because this power of eros, this erotic potential, is very strong. And as much healing as it can also cause a lot of chaos. And this is where the importance of being students really comes in, you know, just humbling ourselves and realizing that while there is this innate memory flowing through us, there's so much to learn, and we're very young on this journey. And especially with sacred sexuality, I mean, it's the ultimate act of creation. Like, it obviously it can create a life and another being, which is a huge responsibility. Speaking from the perspective of having a 1.5-year-old son, like, this is a lot of work. And the ultimate blessing. And also, you know, we can create many other things with that. When we are making love, the energy cultivation, even if it's completely unconscious, there's a lot of energy moving, and we become these magnetic fields for creativity to flow. And within that, you know, especially if we're wanting to tap into these ways of really using it in a focused and directed possibility, it requires a lot of attunement and refinement so that we can do it in a way that is not messy, that is clean, and that is beneficial, once again, you know, for ourselves and for all around us. And that's why, like, they say the temple of Aset, the priestesses that Zoe's talking about, how my teacher, Isis, Emma also is a student of the Oracle clan and the work that we're doing with Isis Indria. And the way she put it was so beautiful. We recently were talking about the Temple of Isis and what this work was. And she said, we were ritualists and theurgists. So the theurgist part is really important. And I am happy to see that it's trending more and more, like all these mystery schools popping up. Because again, this energy is rising on the planet right now. And it's important to give it a good vessel, a good container. Otherwise, it's like pouring water on a table but not having a glass to put it into. You know, it's just this potential energy going in all directions, but without the proper space held. And so to study and to follow our curiosities and to find elders, to find cultures that are carrying these ways well, to be with our sisters, to polish and refine each other, is very important, you know, and to deepen into that theurgist mind of the studying and the humbling and the really learning and not cutting corners and not missing steps and getting really present and focused with how we can use these energies in an impeccable way.
Yeah, well said. So where do you gals?
Gaia.
Where do you Gaias?
Magdalene.
Of course, Damiana has to play.
Yeah.
Where are you taking it from here? Like, obviously, was this the first weekend sort of big?
This was the first one.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations!
And what a first! Like, big shoes to fill each time, and that's the goal. But wow, it was
and I like
beautiful.
to think that, like, the beginning energy of something really says a lot. You know, what it teaches us in the beginning, it holds that vibration throughout. And this was, I couldn't have imagined it going better.
Wow.
And producing events for 10 years, like, there's always so many notes, you know, and for sure we will refine, but just the group of women, incredible, like, no drama.
None.
For 4 days, 40 women living on top of each other.
That alone is a historic feat.
It's a miracle.
Not any, no problems.
Zero.
To solve.
And, like,
We can start writing this down.
And if they did come up, we would have handled it. You know, like, we
We're
had
prepared for it.
all of the tools available to us to take care of it, but nothing did. People were in joy and awe the entire time, and it was beautiful.
And they're able to self-regulate.
Because they've been doing the work.
Yeah, they've been doing the work. So it was a testament to also the container that you
The
held,
leadership.
Roxanne. I mean, watching you in your leadership is so awe-inspiring. Like, constantly flabbergasted by you. And just the container of women, it was like they all knew how to self-regulate and feel their emotions, right? Because that's such a big part of this homecoming is really feeling. And so this was a live, like, you know, expression of that energy in these women who could really, like, regulate themselves and hold each other and support each other and see, right, have the eyes to see and feel. And then just really quickly, that book I was referencing earlier is called Sacred Sexuality, The Erotic Spirit in the World's Great Religions by George Feuerstein, PhD.
It's by a man.
By a man.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Zoe, just to add to what you're saying, I think the there was such a huge transmutation for so many women who expressed how deeply they carried the sister wound, and how through this container of women really being in their full expression and vulnerability and open-heartedness and the safety and the comfort that facilitated, I just think, I mean, all of the pieces together really lended themselves to an extremely coherent, harmonious, and beautiful container for women to also go through pretty deep and intense processes as well. And so, yeah, it gives a lot of faith in the future and what's amongst us right now and who's amongst us right now, and just really opening ourselves to see that and to remember that within ourselves, that we're all the Magdalene. To really awaken the codes that we carry in our DNA.
And as far as what comes next, we are Magdalenes, we are priestesses, we are oracles. We're reconnecting with that consciousness of the oracle and what it means to be a voice for spirit, and also to, I mean, really, just like with singing, just like to be an oracle, yes, it's to speak, but mostly it's to listen. And I would say right now that we've done this, and it's been such a beautiful victory, is to simply listen. And we have a lot of really epic footage that we gathered from the weekend, and that's going to be turned into a sizzle, and then we're going to work on producing the next step, which is the docuseries.
Amazing. So, yeah, definitely something to be proud of. And I can just feel all your excitement.
And can I just give you one more quote that my dad actually sent me this morning? And I'm going to quote the Bible because I just feel like this is very relevant to what we're sharing here today. And I got up this morning. My dad knows the work that we've been doing, and he's a good Christian, raised me in the church, and very out of the box with his way of relating to this particular set of beliefs. But thankfully, I'm appreciative for his support in this project. And he sent me a verse this morning, which is Proverbs 3:16 through 18. And it ascribes the word wisdom with the female gender.
Oh, wow.
And it says, "It is a more valuable commodity than gold and gemstones, for there is nothing you desire that could compare to her. Wisdom extends to you long life in one hand and wealth and promotion in the other. Out of her mouth flows righteousness, and her words release both law and mercy. The ways of wisdom are sweet, always drawing you into the place of wholeness. Seeking for her brings the discovery of untold blessings, for she is the healing tree of life to those who taste her fruits."
Amazing. Wow.
In the Bible.
Yeah.
I just want to speak into something really beautiful. Sophia is, the goddess, the goddess of all that is, means wisdom. And Roxanne's mom is Sophia, and she was there at Wathchtower.
Very embodied.
Everybody's mother.
Yeah,
As everybody's mother. Yeah.
as the mother, to circle it all back home.
To the mother.
Wow. Well, this has definitely been inspiring, to say the least, and I feel all of your excitement, and am just grateful to be able to get the download as soon as you're fresh off of your experience, and I know those listening are feeling the same way. What is the best way for people to, connect with each of you and follow this journey and potentially participate, etc.?
Yeah, and there will also be more opportunities. I mean, this weekend was lovely, and we plan to do it again and again in different iterations. Sometimes it will be a weekend immersion, sometimes an afternoon workshop, probably here at Mystic Manor someday if you'll have us.
That'd be wonderful.
And shorter, longer, different versions of the live experience, because I really cherish that part. And when we do the film tour, the plan is not only to go to these homelands and to film and learn the stories of the different local legends and the peoples and the songs, but to actually commune with that place. If we're in, whether we're in Kemet, which is the original name for Egypt, or Israel and just want to mention Israel here right now and like speak a prayer on behalf of Israel and Palestine and that whole dynamic of what's happening there, and that somehow the hope is that projects like this one can be a part of recreating the matrix of culture so that our children and their children don't have to suffer from the trauma that is being inflicted upon and between humanity right now. And Israel is a big part of this story, the Holy Lands, yeah? And then England and France. And so when we go to these places, we also intend to really listen deeply to the places and the people of these places, and then also to offer experiences and to bring our medicine there and have a cultural exchange and a collective remembering. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to gather and to, of course, get involved, have access to the film. We have a GoFundMe right now. We're still raising $30,000 for the post-production and to get moving into the next step. So if you feel called to support in that way, we can link the GoFundMe in the show notes, and that would be really helpful. And then, of course, we can link all of our Instagrams and whatever websites or anything that the ladies want to put in. A part of the mission of Wathchtower is to create economy for women. We were able to pay 18 women from the work that we did this weekend, which for me is a huge success. Like, that is important. And there's a lot of medicine women and initiated priestesses out there, but the normal world, like mainstream existence, doesn't necessarily like pay to be. I mean, we don't pay our mothers, which is like the first error in society. That is crazy, but you know, that's another conversation. So supporting women to do this work, to help usher in a new way of being, like, that's what we're all about. And so it's been an honor to have such a team of women just holding this container impeccably. And we want to support them all because they all have amazing things to offer. Like, wow, what a collection of sisters. And so let's put all the notes there. And then pretty much the best thing as far as like Wathchtower, if you're specifically interested in that project, is just to follow me. I'm Roxy, Lover of the Garden is my handle. And I'll be talking about this a lot in the coming year.
Yeah, and if this podcast resonates with you, please share it with other sisters and brothers and anyone else who you think would benefit from hearing these codes and activating the love within them to move this forward and really bring forward the more beautiful world we know is possible, to quote Charles Eisenstein. Like, this is the work, the magnum opus, the great work, and it starts with each and every one of us as individuals. So coming together, so let's do it.
It is the worship, truly. And also just recognizing that this is such a tiny taste of the layers of what is here. And so if this does bring up curiosities, questions, definitely reach out and know that you're not alone, and that we have all been on this journey of remembering, and that we are in this time of really coming together to truly weave our medicine and rise up, because together we are rising higher than we ever thought that we could. And we are letting go of the old ways. It's really shifting from I to we, from scarcity to the full shared prosperity, from the lone wolf to the pack mentality to the hive mind, truly coming back to the power of the bees, which, we also have this magical bee medicine. I love it. Well, I'll let you have that,
So you want to share a word on the bees?
Well, I was really coming through and buzzing pretty strong. But I love that, Roxanne, you had this as the Melissa, the bee priestess. I had never heard of that. And the concept of the hive mind and there not being a hierarchy, because when you were stewarding the vision, I was like, okay, well, what is my role? Like, what, and you're like, we're all sharing, you know, and through the support and provision and, you know, intuitive leadership and like all of our refined, you know, pieces, we were able to synergize and form an alliance to support women and to be those watchtowers, which was so beautiful. And then, like, my first stop before coming here, I was like, okay, I need to go get food, and I went to the hive, and I didn't even realize until I was sitting there, and my drink says "Be yourself," and I'm like, wait, what? Oh,
Well, it's funny because you mentioned randomly that my initials are BBB.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
my mom's other child, well, two other childs, but one of them is named Melissa.
Your mom is tapped in.
That's a wrap. Wow.
Viva Melissa.
Viva Melissa.
Full
Viva
circle.
Mary
Wow.
Magdalena.
The last two things I really want to share are one of my favorite pieces, right? Because this is all about returning to love. Is just in any moment where you're feeling stuck or you're feeling disconnected from love, right? Which is fear. Just ask, what would love do in this situation? You know, how can I see the situation through a mature heart?
What would
And
Mary through the eyes of love, to
through the
really
eyes of
see
love,
that
and
compassion.
and listen, like Roxanne was speaking into, really listen and feel, because when you ask a question, it will be answered. And one of my mentors always says the quality of your life is reflected by the quality of your questions. The last thing I will say is just be the honey that you wish to experience in this world.
That is sweet.
So sweet. Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for letting us to come on here and share this medicine, this wisdom, and yeah, may this be the first of many weavings to come with us and with all of what we're here to bring. And yeah, reach out if you're wanting to dive deeper and receive more of this medicine, and really to know, as I was saying, just that you're not alone. And so if you are feeling the call, or parts of you feel like you're in the tower and you're going crazy and you just have no one and nothing and no one understands you and you're like in the depths of the darkness, like know that this is your initiation and this is going to lead you to the greatest, most expanded version of you that is to come, knowing that all that falls away paves the way. Just like the flower petals on the rose, just like the apples falling from the trees, like truly it all paves the way and is the compost for what is to be reborn. And remembering in the depth of the darkness that the only way out is through, and the only way through is in. And when we look within, we remember. And that is some of the greatest worship that we are here to do, and this is why we came here.
Amazing, ladies. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and share your wisdom and excitement. And I will wrap this up with some very masculine dad joke energy. It has been a true pleasure to be a rose among so many thorns today. So thank you, ladies, for making me look so beautiful. And thank you. Oh, I'm getting.
A little tantalizing.
I want to go back to this ceremony you talked about. Like,
yeah.
Hold on, where do I sign up for that?
We do it. Didn't Karen tell you about walking in on my birthday?
No,
I don't think she did. I think she's holding out on me. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And since we typically sign off with a song, I've got an idea. Let's play the song that you referenced earlier, "Heaven is Here Now" by Damiana, everyone. Hope you enjoy. Till next time, journey well.
Are you ready? Let's begin. Everyone that awakens to their true power shifts the scales towards mass awakening. Your body is the greatest, most advanced technology on the planet. Your breath is your greatest tool. Let it guide you to higher dimensions of consciousness. Allow these codes to activate your entire system. Are you ready? Are you ready? 3, 2, 1. You can stop hiding now. The world is ready for your magic. Activate.